Anyways, so before we even get into like the whole self-publishing and how that came about, we need to go back 4 years. That's 8 years, Joy. 4 years. There we go. I think it's 4 years. I don't know. Time flies. Whatever. So when I posted the last chapter of A Secret Service, it hit 1 million reads, and that was crazy. And about a week later, I got contacted by, or it was 2 weeks later, sometime around that time, Wattpad contacted me and were like, hey, we want to send out your book to HarperCollins, our partner, for consideration for publishing. Joy freaked out. Burst into tears. Okay, she didn't burst into tears. I hyperventilated, people. It was legit insane. Flash forward almost an entire year. I was not accepted, which is fine. Because, let's face it, I've read the original, and yeah, that makes sense. It needed a lot of work. But in that time, Wattpad was like, hey, HarperCollins doesn't want you, but we do. We want to put you on the list for possibly publishing. I was like, woohoo! I was like, great, this sounds fantastic. Jump a few months, Wattpad is like, actually, we just want to publish this. We just want to have it out, and we don't even have to do the preliminary, we need to decide, we want this book. So I was like, cool. Contracts go back and forth really fast. Not really fast, they took like a couple weeks. Actually, it took a couple months. And hit a massive glitch. Wattpad was like, hey, we want the right to be able to change anything in this book for TV and movie purposes. And I was like, I cannot do that. I was like, you change something and it changes the story and I can't approve of this. And so I was like, I'm out. And I jumped off a helicopter and it exploded. It was great. So go do. Okay, we're at Wattpad right here. And then Joy walks away. She struts her stuff. She doesn't walk away because they're in Canada and I was here and outside of Boston. So couldn't walk away, but just clicked off the phone. I was like, what's up? I'm out. Jumping again, Joy contacts agents because she's like, that's it. I'm just going to put myself out there. I'm going to send this out to agents so agents can be like, hey, we love your book. We will take it on and we will send it to publishers. It'll be super, super great. I'm like, yay. Joy gets rejection letters. She's totally fine. She's not hurt by it. She's like, I'm down, but I'm going to be back up. I'm coming back. I'm going to keep contacting more agents. But then she's like, wait, hold up, bad guys. I'm going to take a step back. And then I was like, maybe we should relook at it. Maybe it's too long. Maybe it's too many words. And that could be a hindrance because I went through so many phases where it's like, don't do this with agents. Don't do this with agents. And I was like, freaked out. And then so my sister was like, okay, we'll just go back and we'll re-edit it. I was like, cool. So we got into re-editing it, and it was taking so much work, and Joy's health was just not doing great. So I was like, let's hold up on this, not do anything, and Joy will just write and enjoy life. So we're like, cool. Joy's just going to write and enjoy life. Jumping, I decided, oh my gosh. No, we were still in the editing process. I'm just kidding. I wasn't enjoying life. We were still editing. My sister's like, we have to change the beginning. We actually have to start on chapter 6 when they're at the museum because it just kind of throws you into the story and it's so much better. I'm just like, holy frick, my mind just exploded. This is And then my mom comes in because she's just like, no, you started with the mahogany grandfather clock. You have to stick with the grandfather clock. And I was like, you're right, I do. Why did I not see that at the beginning? I was like, okay. So we went to chapter 1 and my mom's like, Joy, I think it's time that I edit your book. And I was kind of like, think about my mom. My mom is probably the most brilliant person I have ever known in my entire life. She does not flatter. And when she takes on a project, she's planning to make it the absolute best you could ever want. And so that is super, super daunting and kind of terrifying and oh my gosh, sort of thing. But knowing my mom, trusting my mom, and being the writer that I was now, where I had more confidence in who I was like, let's do this. Let's edit this ish. I am down. What amazing. We stayed on the first chapter for about 2 months. That is how intense my mom is. We did not move from the first chapter. We do a draft. I would go and I rewrite it. We'd come back, edit it again, and then I would just rewrite it. And we'd just go in this circle of editing and rewriting, and it was really intense. But here's the cool thing. All of that taught me so much about how to edit a book what I needed to focus on, how I needed to take it from being passive verbs, like she was doing this, to she ran. She was running, she ran, like things that just helped me. And then when the world shut down and everything went to crap, I was like, so this is happening. And then my mom was like, have you ever thought of just accepting one of those publishing like dealios? Because I get a lot of messages from other apps that are like, hey Joy, sign up with us and we will get you a contract and we'll pay you for your books. She was like, have you ever thought of just saying yes and accepting money? And I was like, So I looked into one of those and it was a complete scam. And I was like, not gonna do that. That'd be dangerous. I don't like this. Let's back out. But then my mom was like, why don't you self-publish? You have an audience and the audience has wanted your book. And I was like, okay. Wow, I feel like I'm talking so fast. Anyways, that brings us up to October 2020. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to self-publish a book. Go on YouTube. How to self-publish a book. Boom, a video. And she's like, this is the 8 things you need to do to self-publish a book. And I was like, I can do that. Watch me. And so I started the 2.5 craziest months of my life because I'm like, it's self-publishing, December, Christmas, presents, people want this. Oh, that is so much not time at all. And I have to do this all really fast. Okay, this is insane. But it was so crazy because the Girl Power Galaxy came into effect in this time, and it was crazy to watch how it all came together because my sister was like, we've already edited the whole storyline, you know what you need to do, like let's get this back in order. And so we redid a lot of stuff, just big picture wise. We cut things here and there. We were like ninjas. It was like just kidding, I will stop that now. And so she worked on big picture, and then once we got the big picture done, Joy would go and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm editing all of this and this is really insane. And what I would do is I would take the original chapter and then I would have a blank document. I'm just talking really fast. I would have a blank document and I'd re-input the entire chapter. And doing this, I could edit, but it would still be creative. And so it wasn't that, I'm just cutting things. It was like, no, I could put in this more like kind of narrator, Carter sort of voice while I'm writing this, while still having dialogue that still works, still liked it. And so I did that for the entire book, the majority of the entire book. It was super great. What was it? I think it was still October. We had a freak snowstorm, and Joy's coming out of the little house. She's just walking, and then she hits something and goes, poof, and I am carrying my computer, and my literal instinct is to go, because, it's my computer. It literally has everything on it. I couldn't back it up the other day because it was like, your backup drive is too full, and it wasn't backed up. Oh my gosh. You don't understand the panic that I felt. But it was great. I was like, okay, don't freak out. Totally freaking out. But not freaking out. I was like, it's cool. God has this. He has a reason for this. Why? I don't understand, but I'm like, okay. I'm trusting. I'm learning to trust. It was great. I was just like, okay, now I have to have all those files that I just, edited. But it was great. I had Google Docs. Half of it was up on Google Docs. And then the rest of it, I was like, okay, I now have to find these. And so I got some from like Wattpad and then some from emailing myself. And then it was insane. I worked on a computer that was not mine. It was extremely difficult because I have a raised keyboard and it goes clickety, clickety, click. And then the other ones go clack, clack, clack. And it just didn't sound good. I was just like, this isn't right. This is not the sound it should be making. So, I'm not weird. Anyways, so, while that was happening, my sister-in-law and my brother, arrive for Thanksgiving, early Thanksgiving. Yeah, Thanksgiving. And I'm talking to her. I'm like, hey, Trisha, you're pretty brilliant. Do you want to be my copy editor? Because a copy editor is someone who reads the entire thing and they're just like, oh, you need a comma here, here, and here. And you need to cut all these other commas that you just randomly placed. And I'm just like, I don't know commas. Anyways, she's like, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. She's amazing. So that was crazy. And then on top of that, my sister Grace, I was like, so Grace, how do you feel about formatting my entire book for me? And she was like, okay. And so she watches this hour-long, oh, hi, Nigel. She watches this hour-long video on YouTube where it's like, this is how you use this entire program to become pretty much a master formatter for books. And so that's how all this crazy, like, stuff happened where it looks like a legit book. She did all that research, and it was crazy. I hate doing research so much. Literally loathe it. But she was amazing. She did that for me. And so it was just crazy to see how this team formed around me for this project that seemed super easy when I was thinking about it. But then as I got into it, I'm like, this is only slightly daunting. But then the crazy thing, oh my gosh, the crazy thing happens. I need a good cover because I'm just like, I can't use this cover as much as I want to because, you know, it's a classic. I don't own the copyrights to the photo. And so I'm looking up people who do covers. I'm just like, oh my gosh, and it's kind of expensive to get a cover. But I'm like, I need to, like, have a professional cover, though, because if I don't, then I'll look like crap and I'll hate it and So then I feel like I'm making a lot of noises in this one. Anyways, and so my brother is in town. And I'm just like, so yeah, I was like, I need a cover and it'll cost like one person could do like starts at the bare minimum of like $350. And then I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And my brother's like, hey, I know someone who does art. He's an old friend of mine. He's like, let me contact him and see how much he would do it for. He's like, how much would you be willing to pay? I'm like, 300? I was like, I don't have money at all. Like, I say that number because I'm just like, that's pretty much like, I don't know. And I'm just like, God will have to provide because you know what? I don't have it. And God provided. My brother comes in and he was like, so I talked to my friend Ben and he'll do the cover. I'm like, that's great. I still don't have money. And he was like, oh, it's okay. It's your birthday present. I burst into tears naturally because that's insane. Of course, I needed money. God's like, here's your brother and he wants to bless you. Here's money. I was like, oh, okay. So kind of crazy. There we go. I contact Ben. Ben is awesome. Ben is so great to work with. He's just like, okay, I'll read the book. He's like, I'll figure it out. I was just like, yeah, I want your opinion. Like, let me know what you think. And he liked it. I was just like, you're like a 35-year-old man and you liked my book. Cool. Because like, for me, I'm just like, of course, like, girls and you young readers are going to like it. I'm like, that's cool. But for a guy, he's like, no, I liked it. I was like, okay, cool. So anyways, we got to talking. We went back and forth with cover ideas. And that was a crazy thing because it was just so much fun to work with him and just kind of get his opinion on it. And we went back and forth with sketches. And I'm going to tell you this because it's an interesting story. But in the original sketch, there was a gun. And we had the gun in the original sketch for like probably 3/4 of the way. Like, he's going to make the original cover. He's going to make the finalized cover because we're like, okay, this is good. This is good. He's like, okay, I'm going to start it. I show my mom the cover, the sketch of the cover, and this like kind of video he made about it. And it's the first time she's seen it. And she's like, I have a huge caution about the gun. And I was like, huh? And she's like, kind of living in an intense time right now with police and people being shot. She's like, I think you need to take the gun off the cover. I'm like, we're about to finalize this cover? Let me just go call Ben and tell him to stop working. Okay. And it was one of those things where I'm like, you're joking. I was like, this has been an image I've had in my head literally since the beginning of this book. Like, when I found this cover, I was like, that's it. That's the cover of my book. Wrong skin tone, but doesn't matter. I was like, that whole vibe. And she's like, I really think you need to take it off. I'm like, oh, okay. then part of me is just like, don't burst into tears, Joy. Be logical about this and don't burst into tears. Let's not cry. That would be great. And it's so funny because, of course, I'm like slightly freaking out, but then God is like, honor your parents. I'm like, okay, I'm going to honor my mom. Okay, we're going to change this. Like, and then I was like, okay, God, this is on you because guess what? I don't know what to do with this cover now. I'm like, I literally don't know what to do. I've had this image in my head for 4 years. I was like, I have had it so specific. I was like, so yeah, you come up with that new cover because guess what? You wanted it to change, fine. Because, it's great to sass God because it's super smart. Anyways, he has a sense of humor. I know it. Anyways, so I'm like, okay, what could I do instead? And Grace is like, maybe you could have her like leaning against lockers and kind of like looking at people. And I was like, okay, that's something. And Ben's like, yeah, except that would take so much reworking. And we're 3/4 of the way through this. I'm just like, oh, that's right. And then so I'm just like, okay, figure it out. I was like, we got it. And then, of course, Maria's like, well, what does it really represent? When you think of Carter, what is she doing? I'm like, the girl is constantly trying to punch someone throughout the entire book. I was like, and if you actually had the fist behind her and she's holding it, it's like she's holding her back, but then it also looks like your Secret Service agent. And I was just like, so I was like, that can work. We just literally have to remove the gun and everything else works. I was like, okay. So we did that. And I was like, oh my gosh. The most amazing part of this was we go through everything with Ben. He gets me the original cover here. And I share it with you. And I'm just like, there's no gun in this picture. How are they going to take this? They've literally seen a gun in the cover for like the last 4 years, depending on this. Oh my gosh, are they going to hate it? You loved it. You were all freaking out and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You're just like this represents Carter. She's like holding herself back and I was like, okay, don't cry, Joy. Again, I don't know why I go to crying because I'm just overly emotional. So, kind of like, I was like, wow, okay. So people don't hate it and this is actually going to be okay and woo! So, God was like, yeah, now I'm laughing hysterically. I was like, okay, well, if you can laugh, God, that's fine. Because everyone is telling me, they're just like, wow, this is just like, oh my gosh, she's like holding herself back and just like the fist and all this stuff. I'm like, dang, some of you are seeing stuff in that like, okay. So, crazy. Again, this is going on in like the only like 2.5 months that I have before I want to get it out before the 25th. I pretty much wanted to get it out 2 weeks before December 25th because I was like, I want the beginning of December so then they had that time to buy it for Christmas. And so while that is going on, we jump to another screen on Zoom. I'm just kidding, but that's pretty much what it feels like. Anyways, so then on a different tactic, Kelly gets sick. Kelly has been going through the chapters that I've re-edited. She goes back through and she's like, you need to cut this line here. You need to cut this word here. You need to arrange this one thing right here. And she's going through and she's doing these micro edits that just tighten everything up. And she gets sick. I'm just like, there's like 35 chapters that need to be done because Trisha can't copy edit them until Kelly has gone through and micro edit them. And I'm like, don't freak out. Kelly's sick. You can't yell at a sick person. It's really rude. They don't like it. So I was like, cool. Kelly, get better. I'll make you some soup. Okay. Don't freak out, Joy. Don't let her feel any of your pressure whatsoever. So I'm just like, okay, it's cool. Gonna trust God. Again, this is great. So she comes back from being sick and she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, I've just been cooped up in my room and I just like, I can't really do a lot of stuff, but I felt like editing your chapters. And so I busted through 25 of them in 2 days. I'm just like, God's laughing so hard, it's hilarious. Because I'm just like, cool. Then I'm like, hey, Trisha, so here's 25 chapters. How fast can you get those done? And I'm like, and I'm seeing the calendar and it's like ticking. I'm like, oh my gosh, the calendar is ticking so much. And I'm just like, okay, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. And then So Grace did the editing for the formatting in the book. And when I talk about formatting, I mean putting the Secret Service up here. I mean indenting everything. Right here, like the chapter 1s, it has to be up here and it starts down here. And so all of that needs to literally be like section by section done. And Grace is like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to get that done on time because I'm working a full-time job with like 3 boys and that's a lot. And I was like, cool, great. I'm gonna format the entire book in about 3 days. So yeah, I formatted the whole entire book. I put on some 21 pilots and I was like, let's do this-ish. This is gonna be awesome and it's gonna work. And so I formatted the whole book because I had so much fun. I was like, I don't have to have brain power for this part. I can literally just sit here and put in information and not think about anything. I was like, this is the best day of my life. And so do that. All that's done. Crazy balancing like act. It's insane. My sister Trisha read each chapter 3 times. 1, she would look for story. 2, she would look for grammar. And then 3, she would make sure that she did it all correctly. She is literally amazing. I could not have done this without the people in my life. Kelly, Grace, and Trisha were so huge. Ben for doing the cover design. Kevin for supporting me. And then my whole family for just being a backup. It's crazy. And so the moment arrives when, before the moment arrives, we have to jump back. I need ISBN and numbers. That pretty much means it's this number down at the bottom. It just says, hey, when someone looks up this number, they'll find your book. And so I'm like, oh, cool. That's like $200. I'm like, oh, snap. More money that Joy does not have. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we're just going to shove that until later in the process because can't deal with that ish. And then it's great. My brother's like, hey Joy, so I totally didn't do this one thing that I should have done, and to repay, I have $300 that I want to give you. I'm just like, God's just laughing so hard. He's just like, oh, you Joy, ye of little faith. I'm just like, wow, okay. And God's just like, cool, let's do this. I'm like, $300. Where my brother has $300 from is mind-blowing because he doesn't usually have it. Usually he spends it. And so I'm able to buy ISBN numbers. And so I'm like, that's amazing. I was like, this 100 left over will be for anything that catches up because, again, more things keep popping up as we keep going. And then so I have the ISBN numbers. I have the cover done. And we have the whole book formatted. And I go and I put it into Amazon. And Amazon's like, this is all wrong. I'm just like, you're freaking kidding me, right? They're just like, no, your formatting's all off. Your cover doesn't fit the size that you wanted. And so everything's wrong and you can't get your proof copy. Okay. I was like, great. This is fantastic. This is great. And so I'm emailing back and forth with Ben, and I'm just like, Ben, what cover did you size? And he was like, I did a 5x8. And I was like, oh. And we formatted the entire inside of the book by a 5.25 by 8. So in 2 days, I reformatted the entire book for that. It was great. It was great. So we reformatted the entire book, and then still not working. The interior works, and then the cover, I'm just like, why are there spaces on the side? Why doesn't this work? Finally, I realized I was like, oh, Ben, how many pages did you make this cover? And he was like, about 300. I was like, well, it's a 407-page book. And so that marginalizes, that takes care of why it wasn't working. And I was just like, great. And then I'm just like, boom, hit it. It's done. Finally, Joy's not freaking out anymore. And then I hit the proof copy. I'm like, cool, we're going to order that. It'll be great. And then that takes a couple of days to come in. While that's coming in, George's like, okay, marketing, we need to jump on this. I need to contact book bloggers. That means I need to do about like 2 hours of work or an hour of work each day to research people who would like my book so I can send it out and be like, hey, this book is coming out. I think you like it. You should read it. So I'm doing that on top of everything. No wonder I was on burnout. Wow, okay, that makes so much sense. Also, Joy's not writing it this time. No, I was still writing. I think I was writing one-shots because I literally couldn't write anything else because I was so tired. And one-shots are funny and fun and depressing for you guys. It's always fun for me to write them. So anyways, the proof comes in. You guys saw that video. Joy burst into tears. If you want to watch it, it is on my IGTV. Anyways, Joy burst into tears, seeing the cover for the first time, seeing everything. And then what you guys didn't see afterwards was Joy going through and was like, why is there a gap in this? There's just a space between these two lines. And she just goes through. And I'm like, why is this all off center? The margins in the center don't work. This doesn't read well. And so I'm going through the analytical part of it. I'm just like, shoot. So I spend another day and I'm just like, okay, make these work. Okay, re-upload that. Okay, hopefully this is gonna work, because I'm like, because I told people that they could buy it come Tuesday. Oh dear. So I reformat most, like, just chunks of it, and then it comes out. It comes out and everything is at peace with the world. Except it's not really, because then I tell people, I'm like, if you live in the US and you want a signed copy, I was like, message me and we'll make it happen. I'm so happy. I'm like literally so happy that I could get people signed copies. I did not understand the amount of work it would take to get signed copies to said people. And it was a pile of work on top of a pile that was already 2 months long. Anyways, the book came out. I got people signed copies. And then the amazing thing is I got videos and pictures of people receiving their copies and telling me it was there, that they had gotten it for Christmas. And I had one mom in, I think she was in Korea. No, she was in Japan. She's in Japan. She's like, Joy, your book won't come in by the time Christmas comes around, but can you send my daughter a video? Her name's Kennedy, which was really cool. And she's like, can you send her a video just saying that her copy is on the way? And so I send this video, and then Christmas Eve, she sends me this YouTube video, and it's her talking about gifts and just like what she wanted to get her daughter, and talking about the fact that Kennedy just wanted my book. And then she posts a video of me saying, hey Kennedy, your book's on its way, just have patience. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm in a YouTube video. So that was really cool. Oh my gosh, okay. The craziness doesn't stop there, people. It's insane. So come November, in the middle of this, I get this message from this girl on Wattpad, and she's like, hey Joy, she's like, I love your book. She's like, I love it so much that I told my dad about it, and my dad's read it and he loves it, and he's even recorded chapters of the book so then I can read it while I'm doing work and stuff. And she's like, so that brings me to my question. Can my dad record the book for you for free? An audiobook for free. I was just like, what? You don't understand what free means, right? Like, it's insane. So we have been going back and forth for the last, 4 months now. He's read the original. I have copies of him doing chapter 6 over it again, like me critiquing things and be like, okay, you need stronger guy impressions. Go watch Theo James and Dylan O'Brien and mimic their voices. And then I sent them, we finally had a chat in December, and it was really cool. I finally got to see their faces because we have been just going back and forth with email, and we actually FaceTime for the first time, and it's like, this is crazy. It was really cool. He's actually a pastor, so I was like, oh my gosh, that's a God thing. Oh, that's so cool. Anyways, and then so, he was like, oh yeah, he's like, well, I've wanted to go into being an audiobook recorder, so I figured I'd start with this. I was just like, this is literally blowing my mind. The best part of it is Alyssa and her dad are like Steve and Carter. They're that tight, like, and it was really cool. He talked about how he'd be recording parts and he'd just look at his daughter and just, he'd feel it so much more because she's right there. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so they're working on it finally I was able to give them an updated version because I'm like, you're working off Wattpad. That version's not what is going to be published. So I was able to finally get them a copy when it's all done. And so they've been recording. We're hoping for probably a March release date. We'll see. It's, again, it takes a lot to edit an audiobook. But anyways, that's amazing. And then the craziness doesn't stop, people. It's just insane. And so on a live stream one time, because once the book is out, people are just like, Joy, like, I want your book, but like, I don't want just a Kindle book. I want a physical book, and I'm in India. And I'm like, I know. Literally like 8% of my readers are from India. I love you guys. And I'm just like, I have to figure this out. And I Googled, I was like, self-publishing companies in India. But I didn't get a lot. And then stepping up to the plate, Nigel and Sushil on a live stream, I'm like, guys, if you know of any printers or self-publishing companies in India, let me know. And then Nigel and Sushil are just like, hey, Joey, we're going to help you out. And I think it was Nigel. He's like, yeah, I have a guy who like runs a printing company. He was like, so we're looking, or was it Sushil? I apologize, guys, if I got that mixed up. Anyways, as you can see, it's been a lot. And so we go back and forth. They're like, we want to know, they want to know quantity. Like, how much could you do? And I was like, okay, we have to figure that out. And then again, we have a little chat group on Instagram called The Secret Service, and it's so great. I love it so much. It's amazing. Anyways, they get on and are like, hey, we actually found a company called White Falcon that can do self-publishing print on demand for you. And so I've been going back and forth with White Falcon. I'm just like, hey, like, let's make this happen. I want to like get this book in India and print it and all that stuff. And so we've been going back and forth. We are literally so close. Nigel will be receiving a proof copy of the book sometime this week. And then if that's all okay, then I'm like, hey, green light, and it will be live between 10 to 12 days. So like pretty much right around Valentine's Day. But that's insane. Like, I was just like, hey, I'm going to put this out in the world. And they were just like, yeah, it's cool. We'll help you out, Joy. I was like, my mind is freaking blown. This is insane. Oh my gosh. So yeah, this entire process has been crazy and about so much trust. It's literally insane. And so it's just crazy to watch how God has been like, hey, all those things you're going to freak out about, guess what? I'm going to help take care of them. I'm just like, I should have just trusted you more. And he's like, yeah, you should. I'm just like, I'm working on it. But like, oh my gosh, like, I have a printed book. It's going out to people. I will have an audiobook out sometime in the next few months. People in India, you will be able to buy a physical copy of it sometime in February. Like, this is insane. I started this because I was like, I want to be published. And then I just watched how everything came together and blew me away. And so yeah, I think I shared all the crazy stories. Also, it was just really cool. I got to see how excited my family was for this. And as some of you know, my family's just, my parents are divorced, and so we just live on two different sides. But just like, my dad wanted a printed, a signed copy, and my sister wanted one. And oh my gosh, that was also another crazy thing. I had to redo my synopsis halfway through because I was like, I need a good synopsis. I hate synopsises. And my mom came up with one. It was like, oh, snappy, all this stuff. And then I do an Instagram post where the synopsis is on my computer. Someone literally zoomed in, read the synopsis, and they're like, Joy, I want to read that book. I'm like, come again? And they're like, yeah, I want to read that book. I'm like, ah! So I'm just like, it's one person. Maybe it's just one person. And then my sister-in-law, Trisha, she's like, yeah, Joy, I don't like that synopsis. I want to read it. I'm just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I was like, you're joking? Please tell me you're joking. She wasn't joking. So I rewrote the synopsis. And like, I'm rewriting the synopsis as Ben is like getting the cover finished, and I have to give him the synopsis so he can put it on the back of the book. And so that was insane. And my mom's like, well, figure this out. And then I just read like 20 different synopsises. I was like, wow, I don't like any of these synopsises. I'm stressing too hard about my synopsis. I rewrote it, but I was just like, it needs to be punchy, it needs to be good, and like, it just needs to be like subtle and all this stuff. And then my mom's just like, yeah, it just needs to like have that sizzle. And then I read all these synopsises. I'm like, none of these have sizzles, so I don't think I need to stress this much. And actually now I have synopsis that I really, really like, which I updated on Wattpad because I liked it more. So yeah, that was another crazy thing. My computer did get fixed halfway through November, I think. That came back, and all my files were there because I had turned it on, and it just went blank. Everything went blank, and I was just like... But it all came back, so it was there. Because I had rewritten the scene between Carter and her mom at lunch, and I was just like, oh, I really like this. I'm kind of changing up the intensity of it. I'm shifting dynamics. And then when my computer died... I lost all of that, so I was like, okay, I think I can manufacture it again. But then it came back, and I was like, whoo! So, it was a lot of close calls, and it was a lot of pretty much God coming in at the end and just be like, shoo! 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 He makes that noise. Who knew? So yeah. That is the craziness of this entire story, of this publishing process. Will Joy do it again? Not for a long time, people. Gotta give a girl a break, okay? I can't handle it. I'm just kidding. My sister and I are thinking of starting the editing of Mr. Right come, like, April. And then that would give me enough time. So I'm not trying to do it in 3 months. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. Actually, I didn't not think it was a good idea. It was more like I wanted to get it out for December. So yeah, that is the crazy story.